I think that it was probably taken out of context. What I was saying is that I make my music for young black youth because I'm a young black youth myself, and there's a message in my songs.
Yes.
And that's for people who look and come from the same areas that I do. That doesn't mean that my music isn't universal.
So you don't mind white people? So you never said, I don't want white people to buy my music?
I mean, I'm not stupid. You know, I'm a musician, but I like to consider myself a businesswoman.
I mean, your manager's a white guy, right?
Yeah, he is.
Right.
So what was that?
Everyone remembers when Lauryn Hill ruled the scene, the awards, the acclaim, the energy that surrounded her every move. The miseducation of Lauryn Hill wasn't just an album, it was a moment that shifted culture. She was everywhere, and then, she wasn't. Practically overnight, Lauryn faded from the spotlight. No big fall from grace, no explosive scandal, just a quiet disappearance that never quite made sense. But now, there's chatter. The kind of low-key talk that doesn't make headlines but spreads fast through green rooms and backdoor meetings. And oddly enough, one name keeps slipping into these conversations, Diddy's. And here's where it gets messy. MC Lyte, a respected veteran in the game, is said to be talking about it. Not publicly, but in private circles, apparently suggesting that Diddy may have had something to do with Lauryn's quiet exile from the industry. At first, it sounds a little far-fetched. Diddy and Lauryn? Their styles were so different. But the more you think about it, the more suspicious it becomes. Lauryn's story isn't the only one that ended suddenly. Artists like Day 26, Donady Kane, acts that had real potential, seemed to rise, burn bright, and then vanish just as quickly. And in a lot of those stories, Diddy's name lingers in the background like an echo. For someone like Lauryn, who stood firmly against industry manipulation and valued her artistic freedom above everything else, it's easy to imagine how friction might have happened behind the scenes. She wasn't someone you could mold or manage. She wasn't going to play the part or follow the script. That kind of defiance, while powerful, can come at a cost in an industry run by powerful gatekeepers. And Lauryn didn't just face pressure from executives. Her relationship with Wyclef Jean, who was married at the time, stirred headlines. Then came the rumors about her making controversial comments about white fans, something she always denied but that clung to her image for years. Add a draining lawsuit and spiritual influences that allegedly isolated her from those around her, and the picture becomes more complicated. Still, despite all of that, the thought that someone like Diddy might have played a role in pushing her out hits different. Especially considering they weren't total strangers. Lauryn founded the Refugee Project, a non-profit aimed at supporting underserved youth, and Diddy was actually one of the board members. The two also shared a stage at the 2023 Roots picnic in Philly, where Lauryn celebrated her album's 25th anniversary and Diddy performed with the Roots. So it's not like they never crossed paths, the connection was there. That's why these new claims, allegedly being stirred up by MC Lyte behind the curtain, feel worth paying attention to. Because if someone as iconic and respected as Lauryn Hill, a woman who was groomed for greatness since she was a teen, could get blacklisted, it says a lot about how fragile fame really is. Lauryn wasn't some industry puppet. She had soul, depth, a voice that moved people, and she put everything into her work.
All three members dropped solo albums. Lauryn Hill's album has the most success. But then she stops dropping albums. I mean, she had like the MTV Unplugged album, but she doesn't really drop a real follow-up to this diamond-selling album. You know, you guys are still close. Did she tell you why she stopped making albums?
She just felt uninspired.
At just 13, she was on the Apollo stage, facing boos but pushing through. She wasn't deterred. She joined the Fugees, blew up, won Grammys, and starred in major films. And yet, even with all that power behind her name, she just disappeared. No second album. No consistent public presence. Just silence. And while some chalk it up to personal choices or spiritual journeys, there are others quietly wondering if she was pushed out, not by failure, but by design. Lauryn Hill's story isn't just one of talent and triumph, it's also one of silence, mystery, and maybe even sabotage. Back in the late 90s, she wasn't just successful, she was untouchable. The miseducation of Lauryn Hill was playing everywhere. She swept the Grammys, and she was being hailed as one of the most important voices of her generation. But then, nothing. She didn't follow up with another studio album, and her public presence started to fade. No massive tours, no steady output, and barely any interviews. It's like she walked away, or maybe she was pushed. The streets have been talking, and the name that keeps popping up in the shadows? Sean Diddy Combs. Now, it might sound far-fetched at first, like, how could Diddy possibly be connected to Lauryn Hill's disappearance from the music scene? But when you start lining up the dots, especially with what insiders and other artists have hinted over the years, a strange pattern emerges. And according to some low-key chatter behind closed doors, even hip-hop pioneer MC Lyte has been quietly dropping hints that something, or someone, bigger may have contributed to Lauryn being quietly blacklisted. Let's be real, Lauryn didn't have an easy ride, even at the peak of her success. After miseducation exploded in 1998, there was a lawsuit brewing behind the scenes.
What I've consciously decided to do was be patient and wait for those instructions again, as opposed to the instructions from the record company. You know, I can't, unfortunately, I can't fulfill their needs. You know, I can't, because it's devoid of all feeling. You know what I mean? I have to make sure that what I create, you know, I never want to condescend. There are a lot of people who condescend to the audience. You know, they just think, oh, they like anything. Just throw a beat on it and put your voice on it. But if it doesn't move me, then I don't think it's worthy enough to put out there and move someone else. You know what I mean? Like it has to be something that is personally, you know, is something that I need personally. That's my barometer for whether or not it's good for the people.
A group of musicians and producers known as New Arc Entertainment claimed they weren't properly credited or compensated for their work on the album. Instead of taking the matter to court, Lauryn settled, reportedly handing over $5 million. But the whole experience deeply scarred her emotionally. She was young, under pressure, and facing the kind of legal and creative betrayal that can make anyone want to retreat. And that's exactly what she did. In 2009, in a candid interview with Essence, Lauryn explained that fame had consumed her to a dangerous degree. She described the entertainment industry as a machine that pushed her to compromise herself. She didn't want to be a puppet or a product, and when she realized how much she was being bent to fit a mold, she decided to walk away. For her, stepping away wasn't quitting, it was survival. But what really hit fans years later was what Lauryn shared in a 2021 conversation on Rolling Stone's podcast dedicated to the 500 greatest albums. She revealed that not once, had her record label reached out to ask how they could support her in creating a second album. Imagine that. An artist who made one of the greatest albums of all time, and nobody checked in? She made it clear that the music industry's politics, hidden agendas, unrealistic pressures, and literal saboteurs had boxed her into a corner. She said that people tied their personal success narratives to her album, and when her truth didn't match theirs, she became an enemy. On top of that, Lauryn has long spoken about the double standards women, especially Black women, face in the industry. While male artists are allowed to be assertive, bold, and in control, women are often labeled as difficult or emotional. Lauryn wanted the same creative freedom and autonomy as her male peers, but every time she pushed back, the resistance only got stronger. She wasn't just battling industry expectations, she was battling systemic sexism, hypocrisy, and a culture that punishes outspoken women. That reputation followed her. Over time, she was labeled as unpredictable.
My concept of successful living is escaping the matrix, as we talked about, you know. It has very little to do with what people think success is. I actually feel successful right now, even though, you know, I don't have an album out or a video or a song on the radio.
All three members drop solo albums. Lauryn Hill's album has the most success. But then she stops dropping albums. I mean, she had like the MTV Unplugged album, but she doesn't really drop a real follow-up to this diamond selling album. You know, you guys are still close. Did she tell you why she stopped making albums?
She just felt uninspired.
Stories circulated about her showing up hours late to concerts or canceling performances without notice. And unfortunately, some of those stories were true. Lauryn had trouble sticking to schedules, which only fueled the narrative that she was unprofessional. Then came her legal issues with the IRS. In 2012, she was charged with failing to pay nearly $1.8 million in taxes. The next year, she served 3 months in federal prison. When she got out, her musical momentum was long gone. Now here's where things get murky. Despite all those personal and professional setbacks, there are whispers, unconfirmed but consistent, that Lauryn's silence wasn't just about her struggles. According to some insiders, her disappearance may have been aided by people in power who wanted her gone, and Diddy's name keeps getting tossed around. Not because they had some open feud or rivalry, but because Diddy's history with artists who rise fast and fall hard is noticeable. From Donady Kane to Day 26, to artists whose careers just disappeared without explanation, there's a clear pattern. Some folks believed that Diddy, with all his influence in the industry, could quietly pull strings that shut doors, no more label support, no collaborations, no festival bookings. Not through direct confrontation, but through whispers, influence, and fear. Diddy and Lauryn actually did cross paths publicly. He was a board member of her non-profit organization, the Refugee Project, and they both performed at the 2023 Roots picnic in Philly, him with the Roots, her celebrating the 25th anniversary of Miseducation. On the surface, everything looked cordial. But according to certain industry voices, that might have just been a public face. Behind the scenes, some believe he was one of the many forces working against her, keeping her boxed out while pretending to be neutral. And here's where MC Lyte comes in. Sources say she's been making comments behind the scenes, nothing super direct, but definitely suggestive that Lauryn's career didn't crumble on its own. She's been hinting that people with power made sure Lauryn's voice wouldn't disrupt the machine anymore, that her activism, her refusal to be controlled, and her willingness to speak uncomfortable truths made her a threat. And in a business that thrives on control, threats get erased. So maybe Lauryn didn't just fade away. Maybe she was pushed, slowly, quietly, but intentionally. Because let's face it, artists don't just vanish at their peak for no reason. Especially not ones with Lauryn Hill's level of talent, vision, and influence. Maybe this isn't just a story about burnout or bad luck. Maybe it's a story about how the industry handles women who refuse to bow. So now, the question isn't just, what happened to Lauryn Hill? It's, who helped make her disappear? And if MC Lyte really knows something, maybe it's time she speaks up, loud and clear. Let me know what you think, babe. 'Cause the more you look at this story, the harder it is to believe it was all just coincidence.